Welcome to another episode of French Toast Fridays. My name is Andy Jolivet, and I'm joined by my friend Tyler McCarty. What is up, Big Bird?
Good morning.
It's good to see you. Behind
You
the
too.
scenes, we have our buddy Marco Zitzer. We still don't give him a microphone.
No talkie for Marco.
We don't trust him. We're not sure what he'll say.
He looks really good, though.
Yep. The three of us are friends who each have a business that allows us to do meaningful work in the world, and this podcast was born during a conversation that we had at Tyler's house. We were talking about all the people we know who are living great stories, doing wonderful things that deserve to be shared. Tyler had made us French toast that morning.
And it was a Friday.
It was a Friday, so hence, French Toast Fridays was born. Whether you are tuning in from your commute or on the treadmill, maybe you're taking a moment to unwind, we just want to remind you that life is best when it's simple and sincere. With
Syrup.
plenty of syrup.
A lot
Why
of
not?
stickiness.
Love it.
Before we talk to Tom, our guest, Tom Schaeppi, we want to thank you for listening. If you enjoy this conversation, feel free to subscribe and leave a review of the show. And with that, let's just jump in. It's French Toast Fridays.
Morning.
This episode of French Toast Fridays is sponsored by Legacy River Coffee. Legacy River, savoring tradition, one sip at a time.
Hey, Tom.
Morning, Tyler. Morning, Andy and Marco. Good morning. Although Marco does not get a chance to.
No,
Yeah,
you don't.
he's
I mean, you can say anything you want about him, and he can't
That's
even defend
awesome.
himself.
That's terrific.
Although he has editing, so he can.
Yeah, ultimate say.
Yeah.
He can defend
He's got
himself.
his hand on the button.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he can mute us also, Tom.
He is the Wizard of Oz.
Tom Schaeppi is an environmentalist and whiskey enthusiast. He's an avid skier of the snowy downhill variety. He's an experienced marketing and communications professional. He is a father. Any grandkids?
Not yet.
Okay, he's a father.
One day, hopefully.
And although he is probably interested in talking about a lot of the things that I mentioned earlier and how they've contributed to the happiness and fulfillment and meaning in his life, I happen to personally be a super big whiskey nerd. So Tom and Tyler and Marco in his own ways are probably going to have their work cut out for them today trying to get me to discuss anything other than aged brown spirits.
We can always do it later.
We can. But Tom Schaeppi, welcome to French Toast Fridays.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure, really, guys.
So we loosely have 5 questions. And by 5, I mean, if you're listening at home, don't count because we might not get to 5. But we'll have 5 written down that we will at some point maybe get to. And from there, they'll take us in whatever magical directions conversations just happen to do. So the first question we have for you is about firsts. Think back to when you were a youngster. What was your first job?
Whoa. And so I'm twice the three. You could put almost the three together, and that's how old I am. First job.
Yeah, something you got paid for. You didn't have to get taxed on that income.
Well, I was a caddy, but my first really job at 15, I started working in a ski shop.
Nice.
And my mom had to drive me to the. I knew skiing was going to be part of my life, and so I remember. Now this goes back to the late '60s. Okay, actually, yeah, '68. I was putting together. Are all three of you skiers? You are.
Yeah, I am. Yep.
I do ski. Yeah.
So Solomon is still a brand. Obviously, it's still it's a big brand. But I was putting stickers or price tags in the back warehouse. On the toe binding was separate from the heel package back then.
And the ski was made out of wood, and you had to carve it.
Yeah, exactly. And barrel stays were
as a tree.
Yeah. And I think I was paid $1.75 an hour.
Was that decent?
No.
No.
But I didn't know any better either.
But a
'cause-
Snickers was only a quarter, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it was better than what I was getting when I was caddying because I would do a double back then for $6.50, 18 holes a double
Sure.
as a 14-year-old or a 13-year-old.
Does double mean you were carrying the bags of 2 players?
Yeah, for $6.50. Then you hope that you got a sticker bar after 9.
Yeah.
So yeah, but skiing, yeah. So skiing really was my first.
Okay.
Well,
job.
what was the course that you were skiing at, or who'd you work for there?
Well, the building is no longer there. It was called Tatra Ski Shop. It was absolutely beautiful Tyrolean building on 394. Back then it was called Highway 12 in Louisiana.
Sure.
And it became Alpine Ski Shop in the 70s and 80s. And in fact, they hired me. So I worked in the ski business for a long time through college, blah, 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 a lot. So I went back to that building in my years at the university running it. And then it was Alpine Ski Shop.
Okay.
So, and now the building's gone, but I have really good memories.
That's
about
great.
It, so
we're living that lifestyle right now. So we're driving our 15-year-old to a local ski resort so she can ski instruct. So that's kind of cool.
Trollhagen,
Yeah,
you said, right?
Trollhagen, yep.
Trollhagen. So Trollhagen's a throwback.
Uh-huh.
So you guys are young, but so my boys are in their 30s. You guys are in your 30s, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll claim that. Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah.
He can't see gray very well, I don't think.
I've got two absolutely amazing sons, and they're both skiers. I almost said they had to be. They didn't have to be, but they were a year and a half when they first had skis.
Sure,
on.
yeah.
So
Yep.
that's like, you kind of like, okay, if you do one thing in life, right? So, but Trollhagen is a throwback. So it hasn't changed much since I was young.
Yeah.
And I used to race out there. So to me, it's a breath of fresh air.
Right. Yeah. It's such a family-friendly place.
Yeah.
So that's great.
By the way, for our audience that's listening outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul, I have to imagine we have toasties all over the world.
Yeah.
And they're thinking, what's Trollhagen? Sounds like
Norwegian,
it's in the Alps, or
right?
or
It's magical.
394. That must be in some exotic locale. We're talking about the western metro of the Twin Cities in terms of where Tom grew up. I'm imagining like St. Louis Park area.
Actually, Golden Valley is where I grew up, but metro.
And when you say university, did you go to the University of Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm a gopher.
Okay. We use a lot of shorthand around here,
Some
but
slang.
yeah. So let's
You betcha.
Yeah.
let's stay with young Tom or Tommy. I don't know what your mom called you, Thomas.
It was Tom, unless I was not in the best favor. Then it was Thomas.
Okay. Let's probably say Tom. In those younger years of Tom's life, what would have been a thing that you had as a fear?
Oh, wow. I was always pushed to do things I was
Like skiing at 1.5?
like taking responsibility on before I felt I was ready for it. Like in my junior year of high school, I was an assistant manager of a ski shop, and the owner of that shop that I started as a 15-year-old, he sent me to New York with a big check to open up the backpacking department all by myself. I remember my mom said, "Tom, she said, don't go out," but I always was kind of put in. I've obviously got a lot of years to reflect on it, but I've thought about it a lot. But I always they talk a lot about that imposter syndrome. I still have it. It still exists, but I had to kind of realize that people must see something in me to give me the responsibility. That
Trust.
So. Yeah. My fear was really, I had social anxiety a lot of times. It was like, that confidence that you have when you kind of push yourself a little bit. And so, and it's been something that I've put out there in my life just because I know it's a challenge for me.
Yeah, thanks for being willing to go there.
Yeah, and I love that you say, too, that imposter syndrome is something you really don't grow out of. We carry that our whole life.
Yeah, I call fear the real F word. And I think I don't bring it up because I want to dwell on fears. I bring it up because I want to normalize the fact that everybody has things they're afraid of, and you don't grow out of them. I mean, you might grow out of certain fears, like monsters under the bed. Eventually, you maybe realize that's not happening. But that monster,
it's not real?
Well, I don't know. Rumor is they don't exist. But over time, I believe those monsters just kind of shift into new things that we're still afraid of.
Yeah.
So it's not a monster under the bed, but our imaginations maybe even get worse in terms of what they are.
Yeah. We play in our head so much, and it's like what they say, get out of your head.
Sure, sure.
But,
So maybe related to that, so you had some social anxiety, but you also, it sounds like, had some people who gave you opportunities.
Many.
Things that you, in your words, you weren't quite ready for.
Yeah.
Who was the first person other than your parents who you remember who believed in you?
Boy, that's good. So I went to parochial school, 9 years of parochial school, and nuns. So there was a good case in point there that I was a good student, but I also was not a troublemaker, but I was the athlete and not an athlete. I'll correct that. I love sports.
Are you worried that people you went to high school are listening to this and
Call
go,
you out.
"What?
This guy was not an athlete.
He was voted most athletic, most handsome, homecoming king."
I go, Schaeppi. But so my teachers saw things in me, and they put me into, different roles that were like more leadership roles, and I think that's where it's like really I have 4 siblings, so I've come from a family of 5 kids, and so not a huge family, but a big good sized family, and we all play different roles within the structure of a family unit, but so it was grade school. It was like early on, 3rd, 4th grade, 5th grade, and parochial back then was very very structured. And so there was that discipline thing there too. So, but it's just kind of continued from that point on.
What would those nuns be thinking now? Tom's out making whiskey. And...
I thought about, I had some really good nuns too. But I also had, anybody that comes from that world or my age have stories.
Right.
Sure.
And actually, 9th grade, I went to Benilde, and back then, which was so bizarre, they separated us. So this is 68, 9th grade. They separated us by supposedly our intellect or skills. There was low, medium, and high levels. It was run by Christian brothers at that time. There was no girls in the school. And I remember back then going, this is so effed up.
Yeah.
This is so ridiculous.
So feared up is what he was.
Yeah, I was saying feared up. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't know that other F word back then. Or
I'm
I couldn't.
sure.
No,
Not as an innocent Catholic
no,
schoolboy.
no.
How could you have ever learned it? The nuns?
Yeah, but so that was like a really strange experience, and I remember that was my last year in parochial. The fact that there was no girls and no ski team at Benilde back then.
There was nothing there for you.
There was nothing, and they put me into the high level, which was kind of left me kind of like with one other guy.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
Totally. So I asked my parents back then. I said, "Mom and Dad, I hope you don't mind, but do you mind if I go to public school?" And they said, "Why?" I said, and then I was I do remember this. Do I lead with ski or do I lead with girls?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
I led with ski.
Probably smart.
okay.
Probably smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, I'm just a kid still.
Ski
And so,
bunnies.
so
Yep.
and so then I went to public school after that. And,
great.
Here we are.
Here we are. Yeah.
We're going to take a little bit, as my dad will say, blinker. That's what he always says when he wants to
I
shift.
love it.
And he does it a lot because, he's your age, so he shifts. Shout out to my dad. What's up, Dad?
He's shifting right now.
Yeah, he might be. This is a one-word question. I'm going to let Tyler ask it.
Ready?
Yeah.
Aliens.
Sure.
Yeah.
You don't have to just give a one-word answer.
No.
Oh. I think, I'm not a disbeliever. This universe is we're just a speck. And I'm not one of those, conspiracy type things, but, I'm open to it. That's a weird question, Tyler.
Yeah,
give me the weird
Tyler,
ones.
that's a weird question, man.
Tyler, is that in the Bible by chance?
Well, there's stuff out there that says that there could be.
Oh,
so.
yeah. Wow. That's a good one.
It's a deep cut.
I need at some other time to understand where that question came from.
Yeah,
So.
Tyler, tell him more about where it came from. I think I wrote that one, but
Right.
we have had, you'd be surprised because we've had now, more than a handful of these conversations with people. And you ask that question to enough people, you get some stories.
Yeah.
Sometimes you even get video.
Right.
So for anybody, you too, Tom, go back and listen to, but then watch our conversation with Patterson Leith, who works for Sims. I don't know if you're into fly fishing.
I would like to be.
Yeah.
And I saw that one. I do want to go back and watch that one.
Well, go to our website afterwards because we will talk about an experience he has had with other non-human beings, perhaps. And he actually, on a nice river stream in Wisconsin, had his phone with and got a little video. And
Really?
He's shared that and we've passed it on. So it's,
Wow.
I don't know what I believe, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is one big, huge universe.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Amen to make it spiritual.
Yeah, right.
What's the best thing that you've done recently that didn't cost any money?
Wow. This is a good one. I walk and I ride a bike. I'm
Is it
not
electric?
No.
Okay.
Although I'll tell you, that's a whole other story. I always say to each their own.
Yeah.
God bless I mean, if you're out on an electric bike, but they piss me off if I'm on a trail. Excuse me.
You could speak. We're like PG-13.
But at the same time, I'm going, hey, way to go.
They're outside.
They're outside, and then it's a matter of controlling the speed, right? It's like, and then also, hey, on your left, it's like, if you're on a path. But I haven't ridden my road bike enough this year. I was just out a few days ago. I find solace in going in the woods. It's part of what I'm trying to say with my company too. It's just there's something about nature. It's free. It's healing. So that's what I would have, and I hopefully will be doing it forever.
Yeah, it's a good feel. I mean, I have that too. Just getting lost in the woods.
Exactly. No, and it doesn't. If people realize, our phones. I used to be really guilty of not being fully present, and that phone that we all carry is you don't want to blame it on something, but it is so addictive,
right?
Unless you're using it to listen to French Toast Fridays, in which case
you have to. Yeah,
you got to just keep using it, guys.
Absolutely.
That's all right.
By the way, Tyler, this is very good coffee.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Shout out to Legacy River.
I think one of the things I want to do with my company that I've got now is expose people that haven't been necessarily in the woods or in a mountain setting, on a lake, on a chairlift even, Tyler.
Yeah.
I think about this a lot. We're so privileged, the ones that are able to ski and different things. Even a 300 vertical, if here, which is what we mostly have in our hills, just to take a lift to the top and get off the lift and look. It's like I think it just expands the everything, and it'll never go back. So if we can bring children and people that go, and that goes for a walk in the woods too. It's like, have you thought we've got some really great stuff around, especially in Minnesota here. We're just so blessed.
Really fortunate, yeah.
So blessed.
Yep.
One of my main gig in life is I'm a coach who helps people think through values, purpose, legacy, those things. One of the exercises I guide people through is to talk about kind of their best moments in life. So if you go back to your Psych 101, you were talking Abraham Maslow, right? The hierarchy of basic needs. When you get to the top, he calls them peak experiences. Self-actualization, presence, right? That happens then when everything else is kind of covered and we are just there. We're not worried about anything in the past or in the future. We're not future tripping, as I call it. We're just there.
Yeah.
And those moments have a way, if you watch like the Pixar movies Inside Out 1 and 2, they really talk about kind of how core memories are formed. And we can't just create them. We can't just say, all right, I want to have one today around 3:30, so I'm going to go do this thing. Like sometimes they just sneak up on us. But they're called peak experiences. Some people call them mountaintop experiences. And oftentimes they happen on mountaintops. And that's not a coincidence.
Right.
And I don't think it's just the altitude either. There's something about being in a place where you can see for forever. The air smells different. You're not there very often, so you're like really paying attention to it. And it just kind of grabs you and you're like, whoa.
absolutely. And it catches a lot of people by surprise. And I think for us that grew up in that, I think we tend to maybe take it for granted.
Yeah.
And that's what I really want to do as much as I can to expose people to what I've been privileged to have exposed to my whole life. So, so walk in the woods. Nice. I think it's good.
Well, let's talk just briefly, or maybe not briefly. We could talk a long time about this as far as I'm concerned. Let's move into your career. Because I mentioned at the beginning, your background professionally was in a lot of marketing, right?
Yeah, it was.
So marketing communications for brands. If you're watching this on YouTube or on some other video platform, you see a couple bottles of whiskey and maybe even some glasses in front of us. So maybe you're like, wait, why is there whiskey on the table? Why are they drinking coffee and whiskey at the same time? So you've worked as both an employee and consultant in a lot of just creative efforts and outlets. Companies that were focused on outdoors and alcohol seem to kind of be a theme when I look through your CV, right?
Pretty much. Pretty much.
So then looking at it from a high level, maybe like a mountaintop perspective on this, it seems to make sense that you eventually created a whiskey company that's committed to sustainability and gives a portion of sales to organizations that support the environment. But if you can zoom in on just a few of the specifics, maybe moments in time or conversations you had of how that came to be, just share the story of what now is Lost Woods Whiskey.
Absolutely. This is great from someone of my vintage. You do wind up doing more reflection. You know, I do reflect a lot, and I have been doing that recently too. But so I've always been. I think I started skiing when I was 6, and it was barrel stave almost. And my first skis that my parents bought me were from Sears. You know, they had screws on them and a cable and backyard stuff. But there was something about that sport first that just did something for me. So I stayed in the ski retail industry from 15 through college. Actually, my senior year in college, I was a full-time student at the University of Minnesota in business, and I was running I was a manager of a ski shop. I had about 26 employees that were working for me, and I started a solar company.
In what year?
75.
Wow.
Had to be one of the first.
So it was my senior year so I had a friend that was an IT guy, and I remember I was doing so I had many of those mountaintop moments.
Yeah.
My first trip out west skiing was when I was 16. I still can't believe back then, my ski racing group of friends, and they're still friends of mine. We still ski together, but our parents let us take their car, drive out to Colorado. You know, 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
Are you crazy?
It's like those Warren Miller shows, with ski. Like, let's take the station wagon woogity out to Colorado.
We skied those places early on. Vail when it was nothing, and all of them, and so I had, and then we backpacked and climbed in the summertime. So I was out there in the summer as well, and so I had multiple moments where I go, this is just ridiculous. How amazing, that you can reflect, and then you go back to making a living. But I was always in that ski industry until the early 80s, got married in 79, and I was not making any money in the ski industry, loving it, every moment of it.
Yeah. I
started my agency in 84.
Okay.
So up to that point, I was working for people, but from 84 on, I've been self-employed. And my father was an optometrist, so I grew up with someone that was self-employed. So that was kind of my model of like, okay, Dad did it. I also saw how busy he was too. And we had a little cabin up in Aiken. It was a old Sears. I don't know if you've heard about this, but catalog, Sears catalog.
Yeah, houses and cabins.
16 by 20.
Okay.
And it was really thick. It wasn't a normal 2x4, 2x6, and no insulation, of course. It was, but we were blessed to have that for most of my childhood.
So really, you revolutionized the solar panel tiny home thing before
there
it
you
was
go.
even a thing.
Hey, gosh, you were ahead of the curve.
I like that. Yeah, it's all on me.
Yeah.
Right. So I had this, and back in the 70s, we were screwing things up a lot as far as the environment. And I remember one of my papers I did at the U, I was down in the river taking photos of all this crap in the river and stuff. Our river back then was really bad. So I had this desire to, I didn't know exactly what or how I was going to, but I knew I wanted to be involved in it. With my agency, I grew it to be, I had 18 people when I finally sold it 13 years ago. And they were family, and we're not going to get into all but I did many things that I shouldn't have done, meaning I started a business that I should never have done. And it's like, don't go there. But I went there and it hurt me financially. Some of those lessons are extraordinarily difficult, but you learn and hopefully you go from there. But the last 13 years, I was consulting for mostly ski, and I was a consultant for a ski shop in town here. I was a director of marketing for Mount Delac ski area up in Superior for one season, and I was looking for something. I was looking for a vehicle. So if you know the B Corp, Patagonia is a B Corp.
Okay.
Yep.
Cause-based, for-profit cause-based model. And Yvon Chouinard, I have not put, outside of my father, I haven't put really anybody on a pedestal, but Yvon, he just sold Patagonia to the world, basically, to environmental concern. And he said, we only have one shareholder now, and it's Mother Earth.
Yeah.
That guy he's been true to how so he was a B Corp before there were B Corps. He was the first to put a family daycare inside his plants, sourcing the right kind of material, treating vendors the right way, treating everybody on all sides of the chain the way you'd want to be treated as a human being. And so I've followed, and I've had the pleasure of shaking his hand twice, but so that's been part of my makeup, being that I come from the ski industry, and that came out of the ski industry, out of the climbing industry. So when I kind of got free of having the responsibility of employees and whatnot, and I unfortunately I got divorced back 12, 13 years ago too, right about that same time. It's like, okay, now what do I do with my life? And I was looking for a vehicle that could take my love of the outdoors and turn into something that I could grow, have fun doing, educate, and then give back.
Yeah.
So that's that whole movement.
Circle.
So I originally was going to do a brewery. So back 7 years ago, my youngest son's worked for a number of breweries. He's out in Utah, and now he's back here. And beer's not like my first. This is my first choice. Actually, these two are my first.
Coffee and whiskey.
But beer and the outdoors go really well together too. Just like whiskey and the outdoors go really well together, and skiing and whatnot. So, but I learned there were more B Corps than I realized in that, and I also found out that you can't really scale beyond regional because unless you're a big company, refrigeration. So. That's a whole other story that we can get into, how I stumbled across this. But American Single Malt, I stumbled across a highly patented thing here in town that had not been tried yet. We're doing everything the way we're supposed to do it, but a lot of it has to do with that cooperage that I met up in Park Rapids. So we are doing an exceptional whiskey, although you haven't tasted it yet.
You didn't see. I did. I tried
did
it.
you?
Yeah. It's nice.
Oh. And I want you to try the 110 also, because I know you're a whiskey guy. I knew that we had something really, really good in a much younger lifespan than normal. And that's why I went to the San Francisco Spirits Competition. It's blind tasting.
Yeah. Yep.
But so it's just, I don't know, what was the question? So anyways, so my journey, this has been like ongoing. It's,
We're still talking about aliens?
Yeah. So, this has been, it wasn't an accident, but it's a matter of like when the stars kind of line up and you go, boy, this could, the opening was there. There was only a few players in the market. Mm-hmm. I was looking for something, and I didn't want to do just another whiskey brand or a ski brand or whatever that case might be. I wanted it to be something that you had a chance to maybe differentiate, but also bring
it checks the lifestyle boxes, that you were looking for. So, yeah. This episode of French Toast Fridays is sponsored by Align Coaching, guidance to live in alignment with your purpose and values.
This is like moment number 15 probably in this conversation where I have to hold myself back because there's a temptation to really go deep into the whiskey making process and whiskey itself. And so I will save that for later because this is not a whiskey podcast. It's a French Toast podcast. Mm-hmm. But I went on your website and I want to just, because the whiskey industry is highly regulated and yet it's also a wild, wild west. Mm-hmm. And so I had mentioned to you before we talked that my dad and I are both specifically bourbon, but whiskey collectors and nerds. And so we just got back last week from a road trip, our third or fourth trip down to Kentucky, where a majority of the American whiskey is made, specifically bourbon. And what I have come to learn and what I've been trying to teach my dad is, for the most part, on a whiskey bottle, on the label, if it's a full sentence, it's a story. And sometimes facts get in the way of a good story. But then there's some legal things about where it was made, the proof, the age, some of those things. But if it's a full sentence, it's just all marketing.
It is.
It's how can we create a story, even the packaging of it tells a story that can appeal to a consumer. Mm-hmm. And that's why when you talk about blind, so San Francisco Spirits Competition, which is kind of the top place where spirits are given some sort of award or recognition, is blind, meaning those judges who are trained professionals do not know what they are tasting, which I love to do with my own whiskey collection because I can get really, really impacted and influenced by a good story and
good label.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Branding.
And so, and if I bought it, I know how much I paid for it.
Yeah.
I know how hard it was to find. I've read reviews and I know that other people are talking about it. So you kind of come into it wanting to like it, in part because we all have the imposter syndrome of, well, if everybody says this is really good and I paid $100 for it and I had to search all over Kentucky to get a bottle,
it must be good.
What happens if I don't like it? Did I waste my time and money?
Yeah.
And do I not know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I love doing the blind. All that is to say, the story that you guys are telling isn't just some made-up story of we resurrected a brand that goes back to the 1800s, or we found my great-great-grandpa's recipe that he was making during Prohibition. Mm-hmm. There's nothing like that. It's a story that really represents you, Tom Schaeppi, your background, your love for the outdoors, your recognition that the outdoors has something to teach all of us, that it's a gift that we have to preserve because otherwise we will ruin it.
Absolutely.
And so to come up with a company that connects some of those things. I actually want to read, this was on your website, and you're a marketing person in communication, so you maybe even wrote these words, but I think they're lovely. So from the Lost Woods website, links to all these things are on FrenchToastFridays.com. But you said, we're on a mission to redefine the whiskey experience. No small task. But we're on a mission to redefine the whiskey experience where the art of great conversations converge with the breathtaking beauty of the natural world. I call that alignment, right? You bring two things that matter and you bring them into alignment. Crafting moments that linger. I mean, genius verbiage here because linger speaks to a whiskey which has a certain finish, which is to say the flavor that you continue to taste even after the liquid has gone down. And then you use the hashtag whiskey for good. I don't know if that existed before or if you guys did.
It did not.
So I'm all about all this. I love the outdoors and whiskey, and I happen to subscribe to the belief that you should never drink to be happy. You should only drink to be more happy. And so
I like that. And I use that.
Can you talk to us about what led you to weave those words and ideas together into the mission? And maybe even just speak a little bit about the mission, because from the day one of selling bottles of this whiskey, which is to say, you make it, there's all these costs. Tyler can speak to this in his coffee business. You pay for everything. You pay for your malts, or you pay for your coffee beans. You pay for the equipment that you roast it with, or you pay someone to distill it. You buy land where you build a distillery. You pay for packaging and the designing of that. You pay for websites. You pay for the transportation of these things and the packaging and distribution until finally it's on a shelf and someone can actually spend some of their money or consider spending
that's the key right
some
there.
of their money on
Consider. Exactly.
At which case you might actually break even.
Right.
And
Right.
then if you make money, you can decide how you reinvest that into the business and whatever else. You made a decision from the beginning that despite all of those things that are challenges for any business, that you were going to take a portion of what you make and actually contribute it to organizations that are doing things for the natural world, for the environment and outdoors that you care about. How did you weave all this together?
Well, having that plan to begin with, it was a matter of putting the pieces together. So there was this chessboard that I knew this has to be done. I've been saying brick by brick, checking the boxes as you do things. So building a really good product was the first thing, and then doing your proof of concept type scenario. The bottle's a recycled bottle, but I had label problems. My initial recycled labels wouldn't stick on this, but the bartenders and everybody loved the bottle because it was different and whatnot. But I had a label problem, and but you go through all those steps. But I think in my stage of life too, both my boys are doing great. My ex, who we're friends with, I'm still very good friends with. She's doing great. So, I could take that risk, if you will, on to go down this. And I thought, boy, to have, and then identifying the market. So again, one of my strengths is from my marketing. I'm a strategist basically. So, I'm understanding communication and how to talk, how to get A to B and the most efficient way and understand that. So I had that advantage. And then looking at the market, when you were saying like whiskey, I've had a lot of people ask me, why now, being, I'm 72, why now? And why whiskey? Because, that wall's a lot of brown water and it's blurry if you don't know what, and, but I 7 years ago, six and a half years ago, that's when I discovered that American single malt was going to possibly become something that there was only a couple players in it. And it happened to be my beverage, my spirit beverage of choice too. So I thought, hey, let's go for it. And then I came across a process that helped to maybe speed things on. 22 patents on this stave scenario, but not tried. So it's like, okay, let's go for it. No guarantees. So, but giving back was something. For me, it was finding that vehicle, and then if this works out, if this, then that type of thing. And I wrote our first checks last year to Sugarloaf Cove Foundation and Minnesota Forestry Foundation. They were small checks, but they were checks. But I don't want to just be, and I've told this to my group of advisors too, I don't want to be just a check writer. I really want to get involved. I want, when we do build this distillery, I want it to be a really educational experience too. I want people to, when they come onto the property, and you've been to a lot of different distilleries, getting a tour, and if it's been around a long time, it's cool, and blah blah blah, and then you taste, and there's an experience there. But I'm an old Disney guy. The experience, the consistent experience of what Disney has done. I want to take that. Have you been to the High West Distillery in Utah?
No, I've never done distilleries out west.
Well, you have to ski more.
That's true. That's true.
And every mountain town has got a brewery and a distillery. And
coffee roastery.
And great coffee too.
Right.
And so, and of course, being what I'm doing, I have to do research. So when I'm out,
that's difficult research to do.
When I'm out skiing, I have to check out but
it's a business trip.
Exactly. High West has an amazing distillery. They were started in Park City first.
Yep.
And they still have that building. It's about a block off Main Street. Have you been there? Then they bought and built a full Disney brand experience 20 minutes out of Park City. It's in an old ranch. It's quarter horse ranch. That's where quarter horses kind of go to live out their life. It's absolutely so. I want to do, I want to have, when people come and experience the brand, I want them to really be engulfed by it. But I want it to be an educational thing. So when we design, whether we use geothermal or solar or closed loop scenarios within the process, where does our water go? Reuse. I want people to go, this is more than just a distillery tour and tasting.
Yeah.
So that's the big ass dream. But that's the
Hashtag big ass dream.
I thought he said biggest dream.
That's what I said,
That's what he
right?
said.
That's what I said. Yeah. And we're not there yet, but we're working towards it. So, but I'm one lucky guy. So to even be able to play this thing out right now and see if it happens.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I like the full immersion piece. I mean, people love the educational aspect. I mean, everybody wants to come out and see the process and to be able to, hear the sounds, smell the smells. I mean, I think that's huge.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it doesn't just stop there. I mean, you've talked about regenerative with where the farming and the land goes. I mean, that's pretty special to your cause too.
Yeah,
So.
Everything, the whole, farm to table. I really want to bring things down to simplistic. I think we tend to complicate things a whole lot too much in this world right now. And again, nature has. You don't have to ski or snowboard or ride a bike, but I think just being exposed to the things that this earth has provided, and that's full circle, bringing it back. We've got to preserve it.
Yeah.
Your kids.
Yeah.
My grandkids, which I don't have yet. Yeah. No hint, guys. But I'm thinking about the future generations.
Yeah.
So
I love that. Yeah. Yep.
That's great. Well, I mean, we're not necessarily trying to plug people to drink, other than the fact that I support whiskey, and I think it does. It's very conversational, like coffee is, and so if I'm going to spend my money on something, I wanna believe that the people behind that the company has some sort of mission, that it's not just to get someone rich. And I certainly don't want it to be contributing towards things that are destructive to the earth or to institutions that I care about. And so maybe just say for people, because we're going to link to Lost Woods, but so this is now something, whiskey takes a while to get going. It's not like vodka where you can just distill it, bottle it, and sell it the next day.
Right.
It has to sit in a barrel for a while, and I love that about it because it takes time, and nature plays an impact on that because the winters and the summers and every season in between impacts that barrel that's sitting there. Even the fact that a tree, an oak tree that grows, that eventually becomes big enough to be a barrel to hold whiskey, probably needs to grow for 70 to 80 years to be large enough for that. And so we can't go back in time and plant trees 70, 80 years ago to have these. And then for certain types of whiskey, they can only be used once. And so then they get a new life, whether it's aging another kind of spirit or a coffee bean or a hot sauce or a maple syrup or whatever else. And then eventually they might end up being furniture. There's this whole sustainability effort within the whiskey community because it is so natural resource driven. So we talk about farm to table for food. We talk about, bean to bag, maybe in coffee. And we talk about grain to glass in whiskey. So when people buy one of these bottles, hopefully, I think more than anything, you want them to like what's inside.
That's the first thing. Although I have also noticed, I've been doing most of my tastings. So Fridays and Saturdays, you'll find me at different liquor stores in Minnesota, and that's my own little focus group type.
That's awesome.
So I'm able to see what people like. I see repeat people come through. But I have my mission board and I've got my other board, my product board. And I've been finding more often people looking at the mission board going, I love that.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's so endearing. I go, thank you. So, my oldest son was stuck with me for a little bit over pandemic. He has been spending most of his time over in Europe, and but he couldn't get back. And we were having dinner this like 2-3 years ago, and he said, "Dad, you know what you're trying to do? You're attempting to build a conversational totem around your brand." And I said, "Joe, that's exactly what I'm trying to do." And as you said, Andy, whiskey. So coffee, conversational beverages, whether you're around a fire or around a table talking to, people, it's like, I want people, and I say this in today's highly polarized world that we're in, I really want people to talk. I want people that maybe would be afraid to talk to someone across the table, whether they might think they're on the other side or of political, or maybe it's a different skin color or something. Sure. And this whiskey is a conversational beverage. We're producing a sipping whiskey. We're not producing a whiskey that, and so that whole approach to, I guess alcohol, I do recognize, it's something that we have to be careful. We have to, but to how we go down that path. But
well, you are selling a beverage that potentially changes an introvert to an extrovert.
The elixir of truth.
That's right.
It's been called.
The truth elixir.
Yeah. So. And coffee does the same thing,
Yeah.
Tyler.
So
I guess if I brought it right down to it, put my environmental desires to the side, if I have something to do with people taking barriers down and just talking, I would go.
That's
okay,
a win.
That's a total
That's
win.
a win. Yeah.
Total win.
Well, let's do that, because I love the idea of legacy, and I think of legacy in the same way that David Brooks talks about it in his writing of it's not resume virtues, it's eulogy virtues. And so it's not what you can do and what you've accomplished. It's not what you can leave for people. So it's not about what your boys get in terms of inheritance.
Totally.
It's what you've left in them. And that's memories, experiences, support, love, care. For the sake of the Lost Woods brand, and you mentioned to us that you've bought this land up on the North Shore of Lake Superior. Oh, okay.
Don't have it yet.
Okay. By the time people are listening to this, maybe he
he
has had an offer accepted. But you do plan to build a distillery. You plan to continue buying from local farmers and develop those relationships, and using barrels that were oak trees raised in Minnesota, built by a cooperage here in the state, and making a product that wins awards. I mean, this has won double gold at the San Francisco Spirits Competition 3 times, making it a platinum winner, which is the highest award that they can give.
Big accolade, yeah.
And so it has been already recognized as a really quality whiskey in a growing category subset of the whiskey world. But let's think long term. I know you talked about your biggest dreams earlier. But let's say 50 years from now.
I'll still be alive.
You'll still be kicking.
Well, you probably also are involved in some sort of medical research too. But let's say
bionic.
Let's say that beyond your living years, whatever time frame we get to for that, and I hope it's a long time. You seem really healthy, and you have a lot left to offer.
I sure hope so. Thank you. Yeah.
But let's say people outside of your family and friends, what is the lasting impact that you'd like to have on that people are still using and appreciating?
What I hope to happen is we move everything up to the North Shore. I would like us to be large enough so we have our own environmental foundation. I would like to actually evolve and run that. And when you have something that is connected with a brand that hopefully will continue going down, that would be great. That I would have something to do with an entity that would just be self-funded and be able to do some good within the environmental world. So that's my wish. So in 5 years, I also in mind. So you guys all know this probably too, but when you have a business, it's 24/7. So you're. But I'm okay with that because I've fully accepted it. No one's forcing me to do what I'm doing. But and I love what I'm doing, but I wouldn't mind spending a little bit more time with, my boys and skiing and doing a few more things that, losing a couple pounds would be kind of nice. So
all in time.
Well, we're really grateful to know you.
Yes.
We're grateful that you
Yeah.
were willing to come and answer questions and share stories.
And it's so cool too. I mean, we're all in different industries, but our stories are so much alike.
Yeah.
So yeah, great causes, great aspirations. Yeah. So good legacies.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm rooting for your success because I like local, I like whiskey, I like you.
I like the outdoors.
But I think, and I love the outdoors, but I know it's a crowded market. And so I think stories in the end win. A good story. And I think different than maybe what I was saying earlier about how if it's a full sentence on the whiskey label, it's a lie. Yours are not. This is truth because it comes from a place deep within you that you believe in. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the difference because everybody else, the story they're telling is for the sake of sales. Mm-hmm. Now, you of course want to move these bottles, you want to sell them, but you want to sell them because the more you sell, the more you're able to support and grow this environmental portion of your business that might even become its own thing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love to be in that position. I mean, I aspirations or whatever, but and I don't ever put myself up to do a Patagonia type level, but to be able to be in a position where you can say, here, boom, just like, and what a great position to be in. If
maybe not a Patagonia level as far as sales, but a Patagonia level as far as beliefs and the giving back.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I would actually argue that you already are there.
You are, yeah.
Wow.
You and Ivan are cut from the same cloth in terms of your belief in why any of this even matters. Mm-hmm. Why you would start a business, why you would release products and hire people and build companies.
I'm guessing you guys feel the same way. I try not to ever judge or stereotype, but waking up with a reason to wake up, having a passion, having really go. And I've said this before, where and maybe it's the way I was brought up, but I've tried not to always ever work for the weekend, and I get it. I mean, people, but there's where I'm blessed again. I think that the fact that my parents, my upbringing allowed me to be of that framework where every day is a special day for me, and so the weekends are great, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to work. But I won't give away today,
right?
And this has been amazing, guys. This has been just a delight. So this is a gift, and so every day is a gift, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
if I could paraphrase what you just said, I think you said treat every day like it's French Toast Friday.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I love it.
We've never been able to do this because we've never been in person,
right?
But I mean, cheers to you.
Well, thank you.
Cheers to spirits of all types.
Right.
Even cheers to aliens.
Yeah.
May they exist and be have meaning and fulfillment.
Yes.
But
cheers.
Thanks, Tom.
Yes.
Cheers.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's good.
Guys, thanks so much. And Marco, thanks so much.
Marco's somewhere. So this is awesome, Tom. Yeah. Thanks for being here, sharing the story.
That's nice.
So
go get a bottle of Lost Woods whiskey, or at least visit lostwoodswhiskey.com. Go to FrenchToastFridays.com. Before we forget, we, like all of our other guests, had asked you to consider a nonprofit organization that you believe in, that as a thank you for you being a guest on the show, we will make a donation to, and then we'll also post information on our website so other people can learn about them.
Well,
and support them.
right now I have two that Sugarloaf Co Foundation, which is part of the North Shore Collaborative. So they're reforesting the North Shore. If you've been up there lately, you can see the cycle of trees. The birches are dying right now. It's a normal cycle, but we've got to get the white pine back up. Yep. And I'm also giving back to Minnesota Forestry Association, which is educating private forest owners on how to manage their forests better. Okay. I am looking for I'm looking at a three-legged stool that I can bring to other markets. The other one is urban forestry. I have not found one yet, okay. But I would love, because the urban centers are the last to get benefit, and there too, the young people, I'd love to get people out of the concrete and up a chairlift or into the forest. So, so I haven't got that third leg yet, but those two are fantastic. They're doing a lot of good for Minnesota, and I hope as we grow this thing to other states, we'll find similar type organizations that will resonate with those areas. So thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks
so much.
So good.
Thanks again.
Good stuff.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
All right.
thank you.
This episode of French Toast Fridays is sponsored by Oak and Glen, a creative studio with a passion for visual storytelling. What's up, Toasties? Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about today's guest or anything we talked about, visit the show page on FrenchToastFridays.com. We believe that a lot of people have great stories that are worth telling, and we plan on continuing to do this. So if you know someone who would be a great guest, or if you want to be a sponsor on the show, please send us a note at FrenchToastPod@gmail.com. And always remember, life is best when it's simple and sincere with plenty of syrup.